Today's session is on how to generate a return on investment through content marketing. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session, and we're going to be going through, I guess, from a content marketing perspective, what is it, what's really interesting, and how to do it, a framework for you to use. And then from our perspective, really how to get the most out of content marketing, and that's from an SEO perspective. So just a little bit about us. We're a full service marketing agency, and we specialise in SEO, content, social media, outreach and influencer marketing, and also web development. So that essentially means that we can do everything that we need to do to deploy successful content marketing, fantastic SEO, really visual animations, videos, websites, microsites. And today, from Melt, we've got obviously myself, Chief Commercial Officer, Bart Platts, Head of Strategy, and Sarah, who you've probably met downstairs, who is Business Development. So I'm going to hand you over now to Sarah, just to give you some information and a bit of a background in content marketing.
So what is content marketing? The definition is content marketing is a marketing technique of creating and distributing value, relevant and consistent content to attract and acquire a clearly defined audience with the objective of driving profitable customer action. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's providing your audience with what they want to hear, not what you want to tell them. So how effective is it? Well, the stats show stats show that it's very successful. Content marketing costs 62% less than traditional marketing and generates about 3 times as many leads. Conversion rates are nearly 6 times higher for content marketing adopters than non-adopters, and year-on-year growth in unique site traffic is 7.8 times higher for content market leaders compared to followers. So, you know, if it's not something within your strategy, then it's something that obviously you need to be looking at, and that's why we're here today, to show you how to do that. So what type of content is there? Well, here we've got the content marketing matrix, and it shows you all the different types of content that you can deploy within your strategy. And now there's everything from e-news, competitions, events, webinars. And just because you have all these options available to you does not mean that you need to be putting out every single one of them. What you don't want to become is a content churning factory that has kind of no defined vision or no meaning behind why you're putting out that content. It's also important to note that you'll be choosing the types of content that you put out based on your audience. So you shouldn't look at it as, oh, everyone's doing videos right now, or people are running competitions. You need to be looking specifically at your audience and which of these content types will suit them, rather than churning out everything and everything. It's not a case of quantity over quality. Which brings me on to this. So the most important thing to keep in mind when putting out every single piece of content is, why am I putting this out? What's the goal? What's the motivation? And Helena's going to touch on this a little more in a moment. Just a few examples here. So obviously poor quality content. It's not targeted. It's irrelevant to your audience. It's not reader-centric. Lack of value. There's no call to action. There's no solid data behind the strategy. It's too sales driven. It's repetitive, or there's no outreach activity once you've created that content. Which kind of leads me nicely on to Helena, who's going to talk to you about how to actually create your strategy and bring all those kind of pieces together and define which pieces of content you would be sending out to your audience.
So in front of you, you should have our content marketing framework wheel. And this essentially is a checklist that can move you through creating a content marketing strategy. And it's just effectively a framework for you to use. And today I'm going to touch on the process that we have, from motivation through all the different layers. And feel free to look at the wheel as you go through and take it away with you. So our framework moves you from motivation into data insights to inform the strategy, to create the content, and then what's really important is actually constructing the outreach and distribution right from the beginning. Now, the key elements are motivation, and getting that right ensures that you deliver a return on investment. Some people kind of just create content with a vision of, we need a video, we need an article, and without the motivation, without the return on investment centred in the middle, then you don't deliver on your expectation.
Can I just ask,
yes.
An outreach?
Yes.
What do you mean by
so outreach in terms of influencer marketing, and I do go through it actually, and on here if you look you've got outreach, so you've got ambassadors, publishers and influencers, and both mainstream and niche, and that's effectively involving collaborators, people who are industry leaders, people who are passionate about your particular topic, and involving them in the content, and this effectively will help you to springboard the success once you do launch it, and it's effectively trying to make sure that you do have the impact that you're looking for, rather than just creating something and it doesn't actually achieve any reach. So before we go into the process, there's a kind of a fundamental thing I want to cover first, and that's identifying your customer profiles. And effectively you can split this into two parts, so customer personas and understanding the customer journey. Understanding those elements will really help with going through the process. So this is just a handy tool which is free to use. You've got yougov.co.uk and it's profiles, and it will help you to profile your target audience if you don't already have a really clear idea of who you're talking to. Now, it could be that you really already know that, and that's perfect, but this and other tools out there will help you to define more clearly the types of, and there's actually lots of more information that you can see, what they read, where they shop, what their household income is, and it's a really helpful tool. What's really important when you're building your personas and understanding your customer is brainstorming around these areas. So understanding what their key goals are, what their behaviours are, and then based on what their goals are and their behaviours, what you must do and what you mustn't do. And this is an opportunity to really fine-tune where you're going to achieve success and where you should really steer clear of. So at the end of the day, you should really build a very clear picture of your target audience. Now, I recommend you have between 1 and 3, potentially 4 key audience, and you name them. You get really specific so that you can say one is John, he lives in this location, his occupation is this, and this really helps you to sense check whatever it is you're creating. And it's not just from a content marketing perspective, this can go out through all of the different marketing areas. But what's interesting if we just go back one, what's interesting here is understanding the channels that John will be viewing online. So is he using social media? Is he searching online? All of those, and understanding that at this level is really helpful. And then this is understanding the customer personas. Next, we go on to understanding the user journey and mapping out your customer journey. So this is the typical user journey. We've got awareness, consideration, purchase, service, and loyalty. Now, these are the different channels from a marketing perspective that you can market to and reach your customer. So at this point where you've got your persona, you'll want to check at what stage do they go through the different user journeys, and where do they have the different touch points that you can place your content and put it in front of you. So that's really helpful just as a background to sense checking what you're going to do going forward. So there's so many things to consider. There's the right audience, the right channel, the right budget, the right method, the right tool, the right strategy, and of course lots of things can go wrong. So I'm just following on from Sarah's highlighting of some of the common mistakes. Now, one, companies isolating their content marketing from their other marketing channels. Now, this I see quite often, where they have silos of their marketing. Now, it's really important that this should feed into everything. If you're going to have a content marketing strategy, you should tie it into social media and SEO so that everything is singing from the same hymn sheet. And if you do it correctly with the data and the insights, then you can make sure that your targeting is correct for every single channel. So content for content's sake, that's having flat content with no emotion that is literally just churning out something that doesn't add value, that really is not going to benefit somebody and it's not going to do your brand value any good. And missing the valuable element that we're going to talk about today, which is the SEO value, or even being detrimental. If you create something that's really thin, it can have a negative impact on the whole of your site. Not monetizing, so this effectively is leaving money on the table. You've got a fantastic opportunity to monetize with your content, and sometimes companies can create content and not understand the value and not tie it into a more holistic marketing plan. And not informing the strategy with data, which is why we've created this process, so that you do target your audience, that you know the KPIs that you're going to measure it by, and that you build in the return on investment right from the very beginning. Not collaborating with others to springboard and increase organic performance. So this is the outreach piece. This is where you will connect with influential people or people that are passionate about the topic that you're going to write about right at the beginning, so that when you do create it, you can involve them, or you can share it with them to say, this is on the topic that you're really interested, would you like to promote it? And distribution, this is, I see quite often, this last element from a content marketing perspective is often left off the table, and therefore people are expecting something to happen at the end of it. They've created this amazing piece of content, whether it's a video or a campaign, and then it doesn't do anything. So it's really important to recognise that there are a few more steps to making it successful. So this then takes us into the process. So we've got the 5 pillars, we've got motivation, data, strategy, content creation, and then outreach and distribution. So motivation, the first one, this is the fundamental. It's really important to understand from a user perspective as well as from a brand perspective what you're trying to achieve. But at the same time, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it's really important with any content marketing to understand what's the emotional element, what you're trying to engage with, so that they will find value within the piece. And so how do we do this? So as you look through the wheel, you'll be able to see on the 2.2 the data and analysis. And this effectively is understanding the target audience, doing your keyword research so you can find out what types of search volumes, what queries are they saying, understanding your customer persona, what communities are they in online, and what is the social sentiment. And then analysing this, looking at the competition. What are they doing? What are they doing well? What are they doing badly? Are there any opportunities and gaps? What does the data say in terms of topics? Is there any topics that people are actually asking questions around that you could answer? And what's the search volume that's related to that? And it's really important when you're going to be measuring return on investment to put a benchmark in, to say this is where we are today, and anything you do from there you can then measure against. Now, how we do this internally at Melt and for our clients is we go through a process within a discovery stage. So we do a series of audits and reviews, and we can build effectively a business case from SEO, content, and then social media. And some of the components of this are listed in the next one. So here are the components of what we often do for our clients. So we do competitor analysis and opportunities, social listening, keyword research, technical SEO audits, and in some cases where people are new to SEO, where they haven't got a solid plan, we build them a business case. So what we are able to do is do the keyword research to find out what are their target audience asking about, look at what their website should be ranking for, and take it from there to where they need to be, and actually factor in what does that look like in monetary terms. What does that look like in terms of traffic? And the more data we have, the more specific we can make it. So pillar 3, this is taking all of that data and insight and turning it into a strategy. So this is how we do it. So you take the data, food and drink, and these are just examples, right? So you've got the data, you've got your keyword research, and then you look at the data and you see what themes, what topics are people talking about. So to make it very generic so that you can kind of understand this, we've put it in here. So it could be top level, sport, animals, romance, travel, but specifically for you guys, it will be travel. And then underneath that, you want to look at what are the queries and the topics within that data. And then you overlay that with the user journey that we've just talked about. So do any of these themes specifically move your purchase on, or the user through the user journey in an awareness stage or the consideration. And each stage has an associated KPI. And it's really important to identify at this point, how are you going to measure success and what are you looking to achieve? So awareness, it could be brand awareness. And are you going to measure that by reach or ranking position, for example? And outlining that at the very beginning enables you to measure your success. Now, when you've got this data, you really want to define closely the different themes within it and how suitable they are for the different channels. So you've got the user journey, the different stages, and where do the different channels fit within those stages, and where can you have the greatest impact? For example, if you see somebody's asking you lots of questions that you think you can answer that in an FAQ, so that's content or text form that could benefit and add value from an SEO perspective. But then that information could be turned into a video, which would then suit social media and potentially PR. So it's really important to see how can you increase your reach, how can you take one concept and push it across multiple channels, and therefore increasing your ability to have success. So within that, the strategy element, again, this is like a checklist. Have you looked at the channels which are performing? Have you looked at the different types of content? And there's lots of different tools out there to look at and understand. Who's talking about it in your space? Are there key influencers? Is there anybody that you can start involving to see if they want to collaborate? And then the KPIs, this is really important. So what does the return on investment look like for you? Are you going to be wanting to see increase in traffic? Are you looking for ranking? And what does success look like from a content perspective? Is it engagement or is it chatter? For us, these different elements for our clients might actually combine in a strategic plan, a roadmap, style guide, a content calendar, social media calendar, different recommendations from an SEO perspective. And now this is the stage where you've got your data, you've got your strategy, and now this is where you start putting it into action from a content perspective. So we've got planning. So have you outlined who could potentially be your contributors from an outreach and influencer perspective? Who would be your ambassadors, who like your brand, who like what you're doing and would want to share it? From a content perspective, what type is it? Is it text? Is it images? Is it video? What channels, influencers, and the syndication? It's really important to plan out all of these stages. And then as you're preparing it, these two elements are key, and this is where most of failed content marketing comes from. If you don't get the value proposition correct and you don't put the element of return on investment, which you've already identified back in the motivation. Now that could be as simple as a call to action that's missing from your campaign. It's really important to sense check and say, with what I'm building, is it going to deliver a return on investment for me? And then from an outline perspective, if it's text, is there a topical hook? What's the style, the tone of voice, and is there some further content research that needs to be done? And then publishing, so who's going to publish it? When are you going to? Where are you going to put it? And it's important to tie these up because some of this takes quite a lot of time to arrange. Now, in terms of getting your content seen, this is a really key piece that a lot of people don't have, and it's the last stage in the content wheel. And this is what we touched on with Rachel at the beginning. It's involving influencers right from the conception. So once you've got your idea and you know it's going to be on whatever topic, looking for influencers within the space, whether that's influencers, ambassadors or publishers, to see whether they'd be interested. But also being aware that you'll have to do some external marketing, whether that's from an organic social perspective, but likely nowadays with everything's monetized from a paid social media perspective. So within outreach, you've got the niche and the mainstream. So niche is really, really fine-tuned down into the specific area that you're talking about. And mainstream is more general. So it could be very broad. And then within those different sections, you've got publishers, influencers, ambassadors. And then for distribution, it's outlining your paid promotion and your organic promotion. Now, whenever you create a content marketing strategy, I really believe it should be born out of SEO insight. And the reason for that is so it delivers you a return on investment. And how you do that is through the user queries, the search volume, and it's your keyword research. And this enables you to add value and answer a need of the user. So with this in mind, we believe that a good content strategy has SEO at its core. Now, within the travel industry, that's typically split between informational content and commercial content. And so we're going to get Bart to take you through and just give you some SEO insights into what we've seen within those informational and commercial content within the industry.
Okay, so the main premise of this is kind of understanding search intent behind why your users make the search they do to find the content you've made. It's kind of a natural offshoot from traditional keyword research. So I'll go through what it is, how it complements keyword research, and then what the actual potential is for you guys from a travel perspective, and then have a look at some real world examples. So search intent is basically understanding that motivation behind why someone's made that search query. And like I said, it's a complementary step to your keyword research. So boiling it down to its simplest terms is, why has that user made that search and what are they trying to achieve? And where this kind of differs from what the traditional approach is not just being focused on those commercial terms and trying to get volume through the door to where you think conversion's going to happen. So we go on to the next slide. So why bother with this? I think is a valid question. You know, potentially you're going to be creating content that isn't as closely aligned to where the commercial opportunity is. So why would you do that? Since 2010, Google has been, trending the search engines to understand why people are making a search, not just fulfilling the search that people are making, but what's the motivation behind that search? Why are they making that search? What are they actually trying to achieve? So updates in the last 5, 6, 7 years, Knowledge Graph, Hummingbird, and RankBrain are all designed to understand what is that journey that the user is trying to complete. And Google's kind of given us a framework to understand this in a slightly, more tangible way. And they've kind of boiled it down to 3 areas. So someone's making a search to do something, someone's making a search to know something, or someone's making a search to go somewhere. And I've kind of just mocked up some examples of how that looks from a travel perspective. So traditionally, certainly from a search perspective, and certainly the background I've come through in terms of SEO, a lot of effort goes into the commercial do something kind of content development and SEO optimization. And that essentially leads you to creating a website that is all about sales, which is right, but it leaves a big opportunity out. And that's the informational side of things. So understanding why people are looking for that holiday that they want to book. They've done a bit of research to say, I want to go to Greece. So, theoretically you're a travel provider, so why aren't you talking about that portion of the search journey and the content that should fulfill? So looking back at the traditional view, that example of cheap holidays to Greece is a really is a high volume term, but it aligns to a high conversion term as well. But the ranking for that is tough. So you've got 10 spaces on the first page of Google to try and outrank all your competitors. It's a real hard thing to do, and really only the big players are now making that position in the first page a solid place to be. So you've got to think a bit broader about where else you can get that ranking to then get people to come back to your site with a brand search. So yeah, so that portion of the search journey is commercial, and it aligns to the end of the search journey where people have already formed that opinion about what they want to purchase. So this view here looks at how do we get your brand in front of people earlier on to then make them come back to your brand with a brand search. So go on. So this is what we're talking about, and it's often overlooked, is the informational intent searches. So this is top of the funnel purchase behavior. This is about people who are forming that purchase decision but haven't decided where they're going to go for it. So this is a huge opportunity for a brand to get in front of an audience very early in the search journey to then bring them back to a website later on when they're ready to make a purchase. Not only does it identify that portion of the search where people are still trying to find that bit of information, it adds a huge element of content to your site, which then reinforces your commercial stuff. So if you start getting people to see your site when they're trying to find out where's the best places in Greece to go, you're building content that supports the pages that are going to drive the sales later on in the search journey. So the opportunity around informational intent searches is huge. So of all the billions of searches made every day, up to 80% of those are informational. And again, a lot of commercial SEO teams don't look at that. And there is a huge amount of potential for every type of travel site. It drives brand awareness early in the search journey and gets your brand in front of people when they're looking to make a decision. And it allows you to develop a content strategy where you develop semantic and supporting content to your ultimate commercial landing pages that are designed to drive conversion. So I just want to look at a couple of real-world observations. And this is something we've been doing quite a lot of work around in the last 18 months. Big players like The Telegraph and Lonely Planet and Condé Nast are all really well positioned for this type of search. You know, you're deciding that you want to go to Greece this year, but you don't know anything about Greece, so you start by searching where's the best Greek islands, or whatever it might be. These guys are really well positioned. You make any of these searches outside of this meeting, you know, pick a destination, choose a search term about, you know, where's the best hotels in Barcelona, for example. These guys will be there, 100%. Now, they have absolutely the right to be there because they're giving you information, and extensively they're information providers. What they're now doing is monetizing this a lot more. And what we're seeing is the likes of Telegraph particularly, they're now contracting with hotels to win the sale, so you don't actually have to leave the Telegraph. You can find out everything about what's great about Barcelona and then find the hotel you want to book and book it there. So this opportunity should be kind of brought back to the brand, especially niche providers. This is where we're seeing a lot of niche providers kind of making moves into informational search, but broader players can be doing this as well. So the likes of Booking.com or Expedia, they're not focused on doing this at the minute because they've got enough power to rank for the hotel searches, but there is a huge opportunity for them to do so, particularly when you look at Expedia, Telegraph eating up that travel space. So it feels like that informational search is a big opportunity for publications to win, but we're also seeing smaller players and niche players identifying the opportunity, and that's quite simple. You know, the likes of Discover the World, who have, you know, a great Northern Lights proposition, tell people about when's the best time to go, because, you know, that's a very early search behaviour. When is the best time to visit the Northern Lights? You've got the brand in front of the customer very early on, and they're likely to come back when they're looking to book. So how can you take advantage? It's quite simple. You've got a lot of data. If your SEO teams have gone through that keyword research phase, there is a lot of data to say how people are searching and where the opportunity is. So revisit that. Review your content. How does it align to early search behaviour as much as the booking behaviour? And then think less about the individual keywords you're optimizing for. Look at themes within your content and within your proposition. So, you know, if you're a Greek specialist and all you've got is holidays to Greek landing pages, talk about those best places in Greece you can visit, or where's the best places for families, etc. And that just allows you to align the intent with the search journey with the booking funnel. And then that allows you to structure your content to support those wider commercial objectives. Content on a website is what Google wants to see, and Google particularly wants to see quality content. So if you're able to show Google that you really understand the topic of Greece, for example, from a holiday perspective, it supports all of your search opportunities. So you're not just going to be benefiting from slightly less converting content, you're going to be benefiting your commercial stuff because Google sees that you have the authority throughout the site on the topic you're wanting to rank for. So there's benefit throughout. That wraps it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all right. Do you have any questions either on any of the kind of topics, the framework or the SEO that we've just gone through?
Can I ask a question? I'm just looking forward.
Yeah.
We've clearly seen an uplift of people speaking and asking voice searches.
Yeah.
Will that be a disruptor, or will you see the strategy still fitting in?
I think it's going to complement it because at the end of the day, it's going to use the same type of intent mechanism to understand what people are searching for.
To go back to Google, go to the same, but deliver it.
But it's exactly. The mechanism is different, but the intent behind it's the same.
Because we know that I presume that travel is mostly mobile still, certainly on the discovery stage.
Yeah, and mobile I didn't touch on, but that is the key part of early search behaviour on a mobile. If you have your mobile site responsive and ready to capture that search, you're in early in the search journey for people to come back to later on.
And does that make video play a bigger part in it because of mobile, or?
It is a big part. It is just from user behaviour.
Because you're not going to read and read because you lose them after. Certainly, I'm presuming that the time they spend on the page will be a lot less on a mobile than it would be on a website.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it realistically, if you're a smaller player in the travel sector, I mean, how is it possible to compete against the Telegraphs, the Condé Nast, because they have so much content across the globe, across all aspects of travel? If you're a relatively small operator, how do you compete with that?
You have to be, and it's very much following what Mark mentioned, because they have got the monopoly. For the massive, high volume keyword terms, it's going to be very difficult for you to justify taking those first few slots for high volume key terms. So what the best approach is to broaden it out and to do a longer tail and supporting keywords. So really, from an SEO perspective, you win when you're really closely associated with the right to be there. And yes, the bigger players have a lot of brand awareness, they have a lot of content that makes them have a right to be in the key positions. So what you need to do is actually look a little bit broader and see if you're trying to go after this really high end or high volume key term, what other key terms around it are supporting that key term, and then go after those. Now, yes, they are going to be present, but you can, through quality, good content that engages and adds value, you can still achieve the peripheral.
That's a better route than just spending the money on PPC or retargeting or something like that. Where you
I think
it's a longer term play.
It is so my background has been split across actually all channels. I was a marketing director at a travel company, and the importance of SEO is massive. So we spend £1 million on PPC a month, and effectively that is incredibly expensive. And you're pushing all of your money on PPC. If you don't have a strong organic strategy, it's going to be very difficult for you to be in PPC for the long run and to deliver a return on investment. Not only that, because people will go away, they'll come to you from a paid search query, and then they'll go away and they'll come through another channel, and you have to be there to get a return on investment on your paid search. So if you actually you have to kind of do both. And I think it's really important about looking at SEO as a longer term play, but valuing it as this is your ultimate. You want to try and build as much traffic as you can organically, because it's a lot more cost effective. The CPA or cost per acquisition for an SEO keyword that's produced a sale could be 50 pence compared to a PPC, which could be £100. So it shows you in the long run, you have to have a holistic view and see if you need quick sales, that PPC might be your only route if you haven't got an organic strategy, but you have to really value the organic strategy, otherwise you won't be able to afford to continue with the paid search. And that's in my experience, I've seen it quite a few times.
Also, the niche players, we've seen them get a foothold really well by just targeting that far more defined and niche area that presumably you have a specialism in. So we have a Croatian client who, they wanted to improve their visibility for kind of multi-centre searches, which was something actually was quite new to me. Being able to island hop in one holiday, and theoretically that's a fairly broad term to go after, but because you're able to demonstrate your knowledge through content of Croatia, for example, Google values that, and it really does. And it's about making sure the content that's on the page is reflective of the knowledge you have within your business. And good thing about us coming from a travel background ourselves is we're able to understand that and help you kind of sculpt those pages to reflect the knowledge you have as much as what Google expects to see from a value perspective.
Do you think that there's a gap at the moment between the big players producing the content the breadth, they need to have a huge amount of content to be able to compete, for the niche operators to enter now? Is there a gap as a time?
I think
because inevitably they're going to go down the road because they've run out of, they're head on PPC. So they're going to have to find their edge, and the edge has to be content.
Yes,
so therefore, at the moment, the gap exists
to get
for
in there
the
first.
niche operators.
Yeah, completely. I think again from a lot of observations we've been looking at over the last year, the smaller players are the ones that Google are valuing because they understand that that's everything about their business that's manifested on a landing page. So the examples I gave on there, Oliver's Travels and a few others, where they're true specialists. So Oliver Travels being a villa specialist, the Discover the World being Northern Lights and Scandinavia. They have gone to that extent of building blog content and more editorial content where that's what people are searching for, to understand more about their product and then look to buy it somewhere on the internet. And because they've got there first, theoretically they'll come back to the likes of Oliver's Travels, etc., to make the booking later on. So and they have that position now. See, the likes of Expedia and stuff like that should be seeing this as an opportunity for them to move into a more editorial play, but
they're not at the moment.
They're not at the moment. And because these guys, the small players are there at the minute, theoretically, Google should be valuing them as true specialists and value them more than the powerful sites.
More relevant data, basically, and that's what they look for.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's clearly a gap in it
Yeah.
because they're not doing it, and we know that they're not going to sit on their laurels.
Yeah.
They're inevitably Expedia, Booking.com are going to go head on head.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, they're looking at saying, get the pictures more in focus, get that.
Yeah.
You get the steady, but inevitably.
Really.
I was thinking, I was just talking on that, just from a personal point of view, that I've found a great example of that working. There's a woman in the south of France called, her villa's called Luma Sugo. She writes a blog about things to do with family, and obviously all based conveniently 30 minutes from her holiday rental. Yeah. She's just got this one thing. I googled things to do in the south of France with kids. It was about number 3 because she's got loads of content and all she has is this one property, but it's really pushed her up the rankings by having all that content.
Yeah.
So you see on TripAdvisor, right? You see these great small ones, and that's where people find them as well. Yeah. So it doesn't mean they have to be number 1 in Google search. You're just not going to get.
I think there's probably also people who are searching that way looking for authentic content, and therefore they can tell the difference. And then the tough job for the big guys will be to be Expedia and be authentic.
Well, the research says that's what the traveler's looking for. So if the travel company has it, they can. Definitely possible.
Rachel, did you book Villa?
I didn't. It wasn't big enough. It was one of the ones that had the kids sleeping in the living room. I have lived nearby and will be taking up.
Am I right that the statistics are quite high actually on people?
Just take no. No will do.
No.
I understand the statistics are quite high on people going back to the original place that they've read the content to actually book it. The rest of it is a comparison and checks and balances in it. So
It does depend on the I guess the product and the search, because some people literally it's just price. But then if they are just price, then it is going to be the main brands, and they'll probably do a bit of a brand search, and then look from there and compare prices. But when you've got somebody that's looking for something more specific and it's the longer tail, then yes. If you get there first, they like what they see, they feel that actually you're genuine and you've got more information and you've got a lot of data or information there, more than the bigger brands, you're going to have more trust.
And can I just ask about Facebook, because obviously it's such a huge player in the content game and intends to be even more, and from what I understand is they're looking to monetize.
Yes.
And they've already started down that
Yes.
road. So clearly for travel that's a huge and great target to go in, but it's very different. You know, you have that delicate line of speaking to Facebook in a social media way, but you still want to monetize it. Do you think that will be a conflict of interest that will?
I think so. There's a couple of questions there. One of them is that yes, Facebook are monetizing. At the same time, it kind of takes what you've owned and what you've gathered and all the effort that you've worked to build a community, and then they add another level which makes you have to pay for it. So it becomes a little bit more like Google PPC. However, the opportunity is fantastic, yes, and even to book from Facebook. So there's a fantastic opportunity, and I think that, again, it's a little bit of a holistic view. You need all of these elements. It's going to cost you more money, it's going to drive you more conversions, but at the same time, you've got a channel, which is your website, that can deliver and you can get the most out of, and I think you need all of them.
How do you think it fits with Trump? I mean, I know that there's quite a lot of monetization, but that's on, buy that jacket, look at that great, cool blender. Very different as opposed to saying, here's travel.
Yes.
Which is...
I think it will come. I think they'll have the ability to purchase.
Because it's the biggest. Yes. I think what the ETOA spent $6 billion on PPC. So it's
just watch this space, then we get more personal and we'll see it.
It'd be interesting.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Just going back to the outreach part of it, what is the difference between, say, contributors and influencers and ambassadors? Because in my head they're the same.
Okay. So ambassadors is somebody that isn't contributing, that is somebody that is like a brand advocate. So an ambassador, an advocate, somebody who already has a relationship with you or a new relationship, but they're passionate, so they really like your brand, and who would want to share your content purely because they really like the brand, they really like your content, and it's pretty much sharing it out of that kind of, I resonate with it, I'm therefore going to share it with my audience. An influencer and a contributor. Influencer, contributor can be the same thing, but the terms are different because it's an influencer who is contributing to your content. Does that make sense? So you've got an influencer who might have a target audience, that's your target audience, and they're engaging with their audience, trust that influencer. You can speak to them to promote your content, to share your content. But a contributor is that potentially another influencer or the same influencer who will actually give you content to put into your content. Now that's really helpful if they provide content for your content, because then they have a little bit of skin in the game. They want it to succeed, they'll share it, they'll probably reshare it, they might ask some of their network to share it. So where we found the most benefit is actually involving influencers and to become contributors to the content so that it enables it to spread faster. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
I was just thinking, leading on from that, really on behalf of some of our members who are quite small businesses, do you have any tips for helping them find these influencers and ambassadors? Because I think that's quite a challenge, is who should I be going to? Should I go to these people? How do I find those
so we
people?
do. Actually, next week? Is next week we're running a workshop, so we might run another one, and that's on influencer marketing. So a company will come to us and say, right, actually we want to know all about, we saw your influencer marketing event and we want to learn how we do it. We want to see what you need to do, and it's really time consuming. And there's a lot of processes, and I think you'd be shocked at how long everything takes, and there's a lot of negotiation, and there's a huge amount of outreach to then find an influencer that you might want to work with. the one that's suitable, that fits the brand, that's got the niche, that actually you communicate well, that you can trust, and there's loads of different stages. So maybe at another stage, we might run another.
As a niche
workshop.
operator, you'd probably be more likely to be able to be dealing with these influencers because you're so close to your product and you're taking it at such an in-depth level that you have those access far more than you would do if you were all things to all a generalist.
And if you're a niche, you're probably and if you're a niche operator and you're on social and you're watching social, you should be seeing some of these influencers anyway. So you might already have some existing relationships with them.
Now, if I'm a small company and I've gone through everything that you've showed there, and I've gone on that YouGov site and identified my UK market sector, and then I want to expand beyond that into the rest of the English-speaking world, Australia, USA, what do I need to do differently in order to achieve that?
So there are other tools, and I would say, presumably this is from a persona perspective, should be your customers. So is this new or is this existing customers? So do you have any data that you can work with internally to say, right, in Australia, our typical customer looks like XYZ. If you do, I would use that and then validate it with some of the tools. If you don't and it's a new market, I would probably use, there's quite a few keyword research tools, and we can probably share them when we share the deck. And I would try and build a clear picture of the types of queries that people are asking so that you can understand what their pains are, what they're looking for, and what their needs are. So that you can then push that back into a persona basis if you don't already have customer data. But where you have customer data, use that and to say this is our typical customer and this is where we have found our typical customer engaging with us already.
And presumably you'd have to create new websites, your .ie or your .com.
It depends actually. Do you want to take
Well, I think if you have a .com, then my preference is always to keep that .com and then create yourself language pages or destination relevant pages. So you have a .com.au version, which is you might have in the URL AU, and what that essentially allows you to do, what that essentially allows you to do is have one website where you direct all your activity, but because you've segmented your site correctly and well, that one lot of effort benefits all your different destination pages. The other option is to do, have a different domain for every territory, but you then have to make sure all the SEO language kind of technical implementations really well delivered to make sure the effort that you're putting in one domain benefits other domains, and it's a slightly more messy way of doing it. So you can get a .com that you can put across all territories.
It really depends on your resource and your budget. So I tend, if you've got if you're a big player and you've got a massive amount of budget and resource, so you can have teams per country per website, then I would go down that route. Depends though, it has changed over the years, where Google can, as long as you've got it set up correctly, Google can understand. In the years ago, then you would need to have the different top level domain .co.uk, .au, but there are better ways now of just structuring it really clearly so Google understands who you're trying to target. But again, there is more resource, so you'll need more content and it all has to be unique, it can't be the same.
There's not really a lot of mention about backlinks. Is that still an important aspect, and how do you recommend going about getting quality ones?
Okay, so backlinks is still really important. A few years ago, Google gave a big smack to everybody who was doing it, manipulating the search engine. So the old way of doing SEO was all about get this link, pay somebody X amount just to drive loads of links to the website, and that is really bad. But there are actually so we have a webinar coming up that actually answers that topic, but essentially it's through a mix of content marketing and influencer marketing. So pretty much what we were just touching on. When you build content that involves the influencer and they contribute, they want to link to it, they want to share it. So as long as you make sure that they're relevant, high quality influencers with good websites and they contribute and they're really relevant to the topic that you're writing about or you're creating, when you create an asset or a piece of content, people will naturally link to it. And as long as it's really good quality content, more people will want to link to it because it will add value to them. So that's the way that we do organic.
If they know it's there.
Sorry?
If they know it's there.
If they know it's there, if you've done it correctly, there's through outreach, through paid social, through distribution, there's lots of different things that you can do to create the buzz. But yeah, and that's all actually through validating that there's the search intent first. So do your keyword research, find out what are people interested in, and if you create content that answers that, then you're halfway there. You just have to make sure it's really valuable, and then involve the influencer. But yes, it's still a massive thing. There has been a recent change where, from Google's perspective, they don't. If they see a link that is poor, they will just discount it. So nowadays, if anybody was doing any poor, old-fashioned kind of link building perspective, they're wasting their money for one. Two, they can still get a penalty. So it's really not about doing the old hat way of link building. Any other questions?
Typical return on investment?
For what, sorry?
Well, you mentioned it right at the beginning.
Yes.
You said return on investment, so
yeah, so
presumably you had customers and...
Yes. And it depends actually what they're looking for. So some of our clients come to us to do content marketing from a brand perspective, a reach perspective, or most likely the way that we do it is it's from a traffic and SEO value. And that you can measure that, it's tangible, because you can say, when we do benchmarking, you can say, we're here, we've got this domain authority, we've got this amount of monthly traffic, we've got these keyword ranking positions, we've done this campaign, and it's normally a number of campaigns, it's not normally just one, it's a few, but with I don't know whether you want to touch on news. And last year that we launched, we did a kind of 3 campaigns. We launched a brand new website, and we actually did a business case just beforehand to say, right, this is where you are, you're kind of non-existent, and we're going to get you to X amount of thousand visits over this time period. And with the campaign strategically placed, we achieved that. So it's very tangible. You can really map that process out.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the ROI figures from that, it was bang on from the projection, which is
really lucky.
relief. I think, like, as Elaine says, it really depends on what that campaign is, but we're pretty confident we're able to understand what you want to achieve and then map it out to say, this is what it's likely going to have to cost from a content production point of view, and the link building side of it as well, which is an influencer play these days. We don't technically talk about it from a link building perspective, because that's not the kind of motivation you want to instill in the campaign. So it should be about collaborating with people to build links rather than manipulatively trying to buy it. But yeah, I think mapping the ROI is
yeah, and we can
campaign.
do that within forecasting if we have your data. We can then say, right, we obviously know how much the campaign's going to cost. We can even work out likely conversion rates, an impact. It depends where you're coming from. Some clients don't even go down that route. They say, we already know our SEO, we know what we need. We need X, Y, Z. Can you just go ahead and do it for us? And other clients will say, we don't know, and actually we need your help. We want the whole thing. And that's when we will look into the data to say, right, we'll map it out. This is the return on investment. And this is where we've been quite instrumental more recently in actually mapping out new products, because when they don't have any understanding of what a new product's going to do, what the return on investment, when's the break-even point, they might say, right, we're going to launch this new product and we need to make money at this date, and then we have to work backwards to say, right, okay, not just from a content strategy perspective, an actual site content perspective, where you need to have X amount of 100 pages on your site to deliver the traffic you need to achieve the new product success. So it's all about understanding SEO and your site and how it performs, and then we kind of overlay what we need to do on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think you answered the question.
Sorry?
I don't think you answered the question.
Okay.
Your return on investment.
Okay.
Is there a figure?
Is that because at the beginning, though, the key thing was this was all about driving sales? And
There was
and
a-
you're
they made a
giving
reference.
figures for where you're going to end up in terms
Yes,
of search
yeah.
engine optimization. But as a business, what you want is sales. Are you able to specify that
Yeah.
X amount of visits equals
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, that relies on us having conversion data from you. If that doesn't exist, then we look at industry averages, but also then apply that to whether it's cruising or whatever it might be, and then have to apply that to the expected traffic figures we're going to get. And like we say, the accuracy is very good.
But you have to have your data
Yeah.
to be able to do it. So it varies per
There's no rule of thumb,
No.
is there?
It's not. So you might have a
It's
conversion.
just, so I'm not going to do this, I'm going to wait for my team to come in and say, that's the budget, this is our return on the investment, great. But of course, pre-computers, life's changed. And presumably, as you mentioned earlier, all those routes to market have changed. And presumably it's going to change slightly in the future. So at what time do I bring in Mel and change the one I've got? And who's getting stale? Where's the return on investment?
Yes. What are your
finance
competitors doing as well? I guess it's the other side of that. Yeah.
I suppose the market's kind of changed to the point that it's always got to, and that's why they're talking about being agile and keep moving. And the truth of it is not only is it changing, it's changing faster, quicker, and we don't know what's coming next. So, technology is leading the way. It's not necessarily competitors, and it's the ability to adapt to that technology. If you don't have a smartphone now, and if you don't have the next one, then you're already behind the curve. Not that you don't have a phone, but you just can't use the apps. You can't, you're not moving along. And that, I think, applies not just to our industry or content, it applies it across the board. And that's why, Google are changing their rules every day, So you have to change and build the things to work with it, because that's the fact. And apart from that, forget all that, the audience is changing. They're what they want, and how they want it is changing. So it's finding that middle ground. And I guess, there is no exact science, even for the experts, I presume. It's one that you have to just keep maneuvering and learning and doing it. So it is an investment which is
I want to
constant.
challenge you.
But it's a constant, it's an impossible answer, I would think, is it?
Contribute just as from a marketing perspective, because we're B2B and we've had a lot of we still have to keep quite traditional channels. We do a lot of events. We have to actually sell our technology to people. So I think what we're finding though is like, what I've been trying to do is just scale that back, because we spend so much money on these events, and you really need to be spending money online. Looking to the future. So I guess, it's difficult. At some point you'd have to sort of make a leap, but you sort of look at what are you really getting back from what's there. Because a lot of these, sort of traditional things take a lot of, a lot of time, a lot of money. It's just a thought anyway, how to think about it, but it's difficult.
There is, in terms of our forecasting, there is a process. So just I'm trying to answer your question more specifically, but again, it is based on your numbers. So we would be able to map out, and from an SEO perspective, it's not an instant return on investment. There is a time, it takes time, but you are able to map out when you think when we believe we'll see a return on investment. As long as we're able to map it out and say this is the incremental value above what you're currently doing, and this is when you're going to break even. Any point from then on is going to be a massive return on investment for you. It's like a channel that if you can't switch it off unless your website's down. And it's free. If you switched off any agency, it still continues. What channel does that?
A good example of that was actually yesterday. We had a recent client appointment, and they came to us and said, we're looking at chopping our blog content. Is there anything of value before 2014 on there? And you can easily just look back at when things have gone live and what it delivers them today. So we just go into their analytics and say, right, here's all your content from 2008 to 2014, and actually 60% of it is driving most of the traffic to your blog, and of that, an X% of it is driving through to the booking journey and leading to conversion. Without that kind of investment 8-10 years ago, they wouldn't have that traffic that's coming to the site today that's making them sales. And that investment's done. They're not having to prop that blog content up anymore. It's doing its job. It will forever do its job unless they make a decision to get rid of it.
Does Google rank data creation so would the most recent on the topic go up higher, doesn't it?
It depends what the query is. So if the query deserves a fresh result, then later produced content will rank higher. But again, referencing the example from
Best beaches of Barcelona. I mean, that's got to be answered a million times, hasn't it?
And some of the top performing, I can't remember what the topic was fairly evergreen kind of piece of content that isn't going to change too much throughout the years, and it was dated from 2010, and it's the biggest driving piece of content for their site, and we could track through, quite convincingly and quite precisely what it drives them to from a sales perspective throughout a year. It isn't massive in terms of sales, but it's bringing that visibility through, and it's paying for itself. And it's,
I think The Guardian is quite good at that.
Yes.
If you Google things like best campsites on the South Coast, I did something, and a Guardian article from about 5 years ago was still listed as, because it's probably still relevant, but it's written quite a long time ago.
They will update, anything from if the booking season changes, but that piece of content stays the same. Stay on that same URL for all that time. It just has the value. And what it does also is it accrues links over time, and that point you raised. If people have found it valuable from the search, they will share it on those forums that people always talk in.
Therefore it keeps moving up.
Rachel, did you book it?
My husband did. Fortunately, I'm not going on the camping trip. I'm only going to South France.
I think you picked the right one. Obviously got your content right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope you found it really useful and helpful. Please do feel free to take away the wheels. And we will be sending the deck along with some more of the questions and some tools within the deck if you find that useful.
Thank you.
Very good, well done.
Thank you very much.